Hey everyone, Brendan Snyder here. How are you? Thank you so much for joining me and welcome to another episode of New Music Finds. So this is where I like to collect together all the different albums and things that I've purchased over the past week, and I get them from different places like my local record store, but also online retail like Amazon, eBay, and more. I've got 12 things to run through with you here. I've got 11 CDs and one record, and I'll break all this down here in just a bit. Before we get started though, if you're new to my channel and you haven't already hit the subscribe button, please do. Also leave a comment, hit like, all those things do help support my channel. I'd greatly appreciate it. And of course, as an added bonus, by subscribing, you'll be able to stay up to date on really cool episodes just like this, where I'm breaking down all the new things that I've purchased over the past week. And as I like to do, I like to kick off with new releases, and boy was this past week, August 25th, 2023, a huge release week. I got tons of stuff. I think I have 8 new releases here from different bands. And we're gonna kick things off with the one and only Alice Cooper, Road. It's his 22nd solo album and 31st studio album overall, if you count in the Alice Cooper group and you count in the Hollywood Vampires. 31 studio albums from the shock rocker himself, Alice Cooper. Absolutely amazing. I have done a full review of this, and if you want to check that out, I'm going to leave a link in the description for it. The album is good in my opinion. It's a cross between the 1970s era stuff and the garage rock revival of the early 2000s. And it's really right up his alley, or in his wheelhouse, however you want to think about it. But you know, Alice has moved through a lot. He's sort of a chameleon. He's a lot like David Bowie in that regard, constantly changing with the times. But he does these retro albums too, and these throwback albums. And he's kind of been in that vein for the last few years, which is really also where a lot of music is too. So again, staying current, but also jumping back into some of his classic stuff. So I do highly recommend this. I think it's great. None of the singles grabbed me immediately, but I will say this. When I heard it in context of the album, I was, changed my opinion of this. So if you weren't as into the singles either, I do say, listen to the whole album. I think you might be pleasantly surprised the way I was. Okay, the album itself that I didn't really have high hopes for. I wasn't too sure what to expect. I hoped it would be good, but had no idea it could, perhaps rival their last album. Talking about the new Vandenberg. This album here is called Sin. And the previous album, 2020, which came out in 2020, so about 3 years ago at this point, that album was phenomenal and topped a lot of people's, albums of the year chart and that kind of stuff. It was just a huge return for Adrian Vandenberg. That album had Ronnie Romero singing and was great at that time, but I've gotten a little burnt out on Ronnie Romero, and so I was actually happy when Vandenberg announced that their new vocalist would be Mats Levin, and I didn't know a lot about him. Come to find out, he's actually sung for a lot of different bands, more modern era bands that I'm not as into, but he's sung for a lot of different groups. Now, where I knew him from was Yngwie Malmsteen, and I liked the album Facing the Animal that he is on, so when I heard he was going to do this, I knew it was right up my alley of what I would enjoy. But I have to say, I actually like this new album, Sin, better than 2020. And I know that's a big thing to say. In fact, if I had to, pinpoint this album in terms of all of theirs, I'd actually say this is the best album they've ever made. Now, I didn't grow up with Vandenberg in the 80s, and those albums have never really bowled me over, but 2020 certainly did, and then this one here even more. So I like up until the release of this, I like 2020 best, and now I like this one even better than that. And it's very hard for a band to be doing their best work present day than they were when they first started. But in my opinion, Adrian Vandenberg, former Whitesnake guitar player, doing it here. So highly recommend checking that one out. Now, one that I thought I would be super into, and this one just hasn't grabbed me yet, the new U.D.O. It's called Touchdown, and I do like it. Maybe it's just because there's, such great stuff with, other ones that I'm listening to that this one isn't really registering yet for me. But nothing on here's really jumped out and grabbed me. I'm sure down the road when I'm really in the mood for some U.D.O, I'm going to really enjoy the album. And that has happened with some of his stuff in the past. But at least right now, that album hasn't grabbed me. Not to say it's a bad album. It's a good album. It's what you'd expect from U.D.O. And it's just lots of hard rock and heavy metal, melodic vocal style. I don't even know how to describe it because there's a lot of melody. I really shouldn't call it melodic. There's always melody in the way that U.D.O. sings and does the albums, and the guitar lead fills that go over things and whatnot. So good album, just hasn't grabbed me the way those other two have. This was one that I only just found when I was doing the What Just Dropped series that I do, which posts every Saturday morning, where I run through all the stuff that I can find that just dropped from the Friday, in this case the August 25th date, and I'm going through it line by line by line until I find all the key things, and there's always one or two things that I didn't know were coming out. Tony Mitchell, and if you don't recognize this name, because I didn't either, but the album cover grabbed me, and I said, let me look this up. And I found out Tony Mitchell was the lead vocalist for a group called Kiss of the Gypsy. And I have their 1992 album on Atco Records, and they're right at the tail end of the glam metal scene, and it's pretty much just straight up hard rock with, it's got some extra keyboards and horns and piano and things in it, so it's a little more than just straight up glam kind of sound, but they had that look and that feel and everything. And a good album. They only made the one album. I didn't know that the vocalist had gone off. I think this is his third or fourth solo album, so if that is of interest to you, you glam metal fans out there, and you don't know Kiss of the Gypsy, check that out, but also check out the new Tony Mitchell. So that was a later pickup for me after having gone through that, and I would recommend all you guys to tune into the What Just Dropped series, because not only is it for me to find new things, but as I'm finding all these things, I like to share it with you guys. One that I wasn't expecting a lot for, and I didn't so much care for the last album this band did, but this one here has bowled me over. The new Candlebox, The Long Goodbye. It's their 8th and final studio album because the band is retiring. They're not only going out on their 30th anniversary tour, but it's also their farewell tour. But at least we're getting one last album from them. Kevin Martin is the only original lead vocalist, and I have done a full review for this, so if you want to check that out, again, I'll leave the link in the description. And I didn't mention it, but I have done a full review for the Vandenberg, so Alice Cooper, Vandenberg, and Candlebox full reviews have been done. This one here just really moved me, and despite being in a metal and a hard rock mood, the alternative rock of this worked beautifully. Sometimes I can't move between two genres when I'm way into something, but this album is so good it didn't matter. And I'll let you guys tune into the full review if you want to know more about that, but the album itself is just so good. It's kind of a bittersweet thing, I'm getting such a great album and I want more, but at the same time, it's nice for the band to be going out on top, in my opinion, because if they went out with the last album, Wolves, which is not a bad album, it just didn't grab me, this one here is so good. I will always remember this, and it's kind of making a key moment for the band if this is the final it for them. Okay, another new release, one that I wasn't planning on picking up. New Liam Gallagher live album. You guys know I'm not a fan of live albums per se, but this one here, Nebworth 22, is the kind of live album I like. 170,000 people in Nebworth Park screaming and singing along to the songs. You can hear them doing it with him. The energy that's in the air is just undeniable. Great album. Whether this, I hold it this way because that's how the album opens, but I actually think the album cover is supposed to be this, so I keep turning it. Now, I talked in the What Just Dropped series about the deluxe edition box version like this, that was $38 but dropped down to only $14.98, so under $15. I decided to take a chance and go ahead and order it. I thought for sure this was going to be crushed because it's not that heavy a cardboard. Fortunately, it arrived unscathed through Amazon, so an absolute mind-boggling, shocking event for that to happen, for Amazon to ship me something that didn't get destroyed, especially when the packaging actually matters like this. I'm not going to open it up because I chose to open mine from the bottom side. I did not want to do the perforation along here because the top opens like this. But there's a flag, there's a wristband, a ticket, some cards that, images from the show and stuff like that, and the CD. Now, why I was pointing this out, and again, just another plug for the What Just Dropped. When I did the What Just Dropped, this was 15 bucks. After I ordered mine, and I checked again when it had arrived on Saturday, it had gone up to $38. So I think someone made a mistake pricing the deluxe edition the way that the single album was supposed to be. And then they figured out, oops, and they jacked the price back up. So any of you guys that ordered one, from watching that video, you got in on a good deal just like I did. And as I said, phenomenal live albums. So I'm slowly building up live albums that I like, and I have done a top 10 live albums of all time kind of thing, and they're the ones that I like, and I know it's not going to match up with everybody's, but I have found at least 10 live albums that I like. All right, moving along, there was a new old Atlanta Rhythm section, really a collection from the vaults, and this is called Time Machine, 2-disc set, and it's on the Sunset Boulevard label. The reason I point that out is, if I can find it here real quick, wherever it is, there we go, sorry for looking away for you. There was this one here called From the Vaults, and it's on the same label. Some of the tracks here do appear on this, but it is not a straight one-for-one. There's bunches of tracks on here that are unreleased, and they break this down into Studio Rarities, the first disc, which all have great sound quality, and Concert Classics disc 2, which all have great quality, spanning from 78, 77, 81, all the way to 96. So really cool, nice, broad overview of the band. If you're a fan of Atlanta Rhythm section, great Southern rock band, that's a nice collection and overall from them. And then there was a box set from Magnum of the early years, their first 5 studio albums plus 1 live album. I wasn't too sure because I didn't know any of this when I did the What Just Dropped episode and I talked about it. And I think I might have called out that it was 6 studio albums, but in fact, Marauder, which was technically their 3rd album, although it listed as number 4 on here. 1980 was a live album, so I found that out after getting it. Nothing about the name, the front cover, anything suggests that there it is, that this thing was a live album. But 6 albums, 5 studio, so it's got 4 studio albums, the 1 live album, and then a collection from the vaults that is the 6 total albums that Jet released. Really good, and I gotta say this. It's the 3rd disc in here, but it was their 2nd album, simply called Magnum 2. I love the keyboards in it. It's so 1980s sounding, even though the album is 1979. If you're a keyboard fan, this is a great album to check out. It just absolutely was right up my alley. I've been jamming out to that one all weekend. Okay, so those were all just the new releases that came out, and I did get a few other things in the mail. Last episode you saw that I was digging into some Moon Martin. I also ordered a best of, and mostly because I can't get his first album, just too expensive, at least right now. I'm sure I'll find it eventually, but the first album had his original version of the song Bad Case of Lovin' You, the song Doctor Doctor that he gave to Robert Palmer, who had a big hit with that. I didn't know that he wrote it. I later found out because Frankie Miller did a cover version of it, and I wondered who had written it. I thought maybe Frankie Miller did because of his style and going back into the 70s, but found out it was Moon Martin, which led to me picking this stuff up. So this covers his first 4 albums, and it's just a nice collection overall. Out of print, hard to come by. I had to buy that one off of eBay. And speaking of Frankie Miller, I finally got the one album that kicked off my whole interest in him, which was this one, Dancing in the Rain. When I listened to this one, and track number 2 that's on here, Do It Till We Drop. I don't know who I heard cover that song or why I know that song, because I don't think I know it from Frankie Miller. I immediately was like, wow, that's who this guy is. I want to know more from him. But it took so long to find a decently priced copy of it. Then when I ordered it, it took several weeks to get to me. So it ended up being the last thing that I bought from Frankie Miller. I now have his entire collection, at least of the original run that he did up through this album. He might have done an album or two after it, but I have everything from the beginning up to this, at least, the stuff that I want so far. So great stuff, kind of topping off my Frankie Miller there. And then I was up at Sound Exchange and I picked up this group called Glory, which has Goran Edman on it. And I know him from singing with Yngwie Malmsteen. But recently I was listening to John Norm from Europe, and he did a solo album in 1987 that I always loved. And I thought John Norm did all the lead vocals on that because I never really looked at the credits too closely in the album. But I watched some music videos and I said, whoa, who's this other person singing on stage with him? So I went to the album credits and I looked up, and it was Goran Edman. And as I said, I always liked him from Yngwie Malmsteen, so I wanted to track down some more. So he joined Glory in the 90s, and this was 1998. In fact, I think it might be their last album, but Sound Exchange had a couple of them. And this one here, Wintergreen, it's very interesting. I believe Goran is Swedish, and so is the band, so it is Swedish rock, and it's right in that wheelhouse of Europe. And if you like that style, there's some good stuff for you. All right, the final thing I got, I wasn't even expecting. It just showed up on my doorstep, and it was such a cool surprise. Maybe a couple months back at this point, I talked to you guys. I did a thing, and I did some unboxing, and I talked about the group Uncle Sally, a group I grew up with, local to the Florida area where I grew up, before moving to New York City, and then I now live here in New Jersey. And the guitar player for that band saw the video. Some people reached out to him and let him know, and he sent me some stuff as a thank you, and it was just very cool. And I filmed a whole video about it, just about the power of music and how what I did spoke to him, but what he did equally spoke to me as the music fan, getting something from one of my childhood heroes, kind of thing. It was very cool. Well, he sent me this letter, and with it, an LP repressing, I should say, of their debut full-length album, World of Hurt. And I didn't even notice this right away because I haven't taken the cellophane off it, but he signed it. He ripped out a little piece here and he signed it. And I thought that was so cool. Jeff Dyer, just absolutely awesome, because it's great to get the music, but I'm a fan. I still like my meeting my heroes, my musicians, that sort of thing. And so getting it autographed was actually extra special, because I actually never got to meet Uncle Sally back in the day, although I did go around to a lot of signings and stuff like that. But I talked about these guys, and they're on the maybe not now, and I want to say it was like World of Hurt Records, but they were on, it was a small little indie label, and they put it out in 1993. They had a song, Take Me Away From This Evil, at least that's what it's called here on the back, but I think it was just called Evil, or they one of their EPs called it Evil, and then it was called Take Me Away From This Evil. But you might know that song if you were around the Florida area or anything. Just an absolutely great late era sort of glam rock sounding song. The rest of the stuff is more of the early 90s sound, but very cool. And a lot of you guys were really interested, and so he sent me the record, and I just wanted to point out to everyone that they only pressed 100. So if you are one of the ones who is trying to get a hold of something and then he sold out, because he did so quickly after I'd posted that video, they did press 100 copies on vinyl. So definitely head over to the website, unclesally.com. I'm going to leave a link in the description for it. And you can check out and talk with Jeff Dyer. And in fact, as I understand it, I believe it's only being sold through eBay. So you could also just go straight to eBay and check it out. But I'll leave information in the description. And those of you that want something that couldn't get it before, here you go. But if you never checked out Uncle Sally and you're a fan of some the late era glam metal before it all went bust, Uncle Sally is a really cool group to check out, and it's very hard to come by. So also just a nice little glam metal gem for you fans of that series that I do. All right, everyone, take care, have a good one, and tune in next Wednesday where I do a run through of all the other stuff I bought, and you get to learn a little bit about new releases, things I dug up, and or cool things like this that just show up in the mail. All right, take care everyone, have a good one, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.